What's up? So today we will be starting the King of the Hill franchise. Yeah, I'm currently watching this show, but I decided to, decided to do this show because this show is funny. And yeah, so hopefully you join me on the 13 seasons plus an upcoming revival run of this show. Because yeah, I'm excited to do this show. We'll be doing it on this main channel, not on any other channel, just the main channel. Thought about creating another channel for this, but just deciding to stick it on this main channel because this is where normally I do my reviews. So this first episode starts off with I was saying that Bill, Boomhauer, Dale, and Hank all talking about how to fix Hank's car, and they're like, yep, mm-hmm, and Boomhauer speaks all the gibberish like dangle man, dangle just pigment, dangle Walter Rat man. And Hank's like, that's very good talk about Breaking Bad, Boomhauer. I know the show came out and ended before the show came out during the later half of the end of the later end of the show came out during Breaking Bad's run. But to make a Breaking Bad joke during the first episode, to me to make a Breaking Bad joke is very good. So yeah, so Boomhauer's like, so they're like, did you catch that episode of Seinfeld last night? And Hank's like, no, I missed it. And then Boomhauer talks about how, those guys trying to touch their penis and Joe trying to taste their penises, and George screams all the time. I don't know if they're actually doing this, or does Seinfeld actually do this, or is the show just trying to make a joke about it? So yeah, so after the intro, which is one of the best intros of all time, we see Hank going into Bobby's room, and he asks Bobby what he's listening to, and he puts on the earphone just for a fart noise to come out, and Hank's like, what are you listening to? And Bobby's like, it's something I got off at a store. And Bobby's like, and Hank's like, you shouldn't be listening to this. Whoever's doing this must have a disorder. Then he barges in to see Luann, and she's their niece apparently, and and he asked her why she hasn't gone home yet. And she said, well, her parents are still fighting. So he's like, you could say it was the only time you want, but he's got a boy in the house. He doesn't refer to Bobby as Bobby. He just calls him the boy. Because that's how Hank was raised. So yeah, so they go to a game where Hank tells Bobby to run. But as soon as Bobby runs, he can't hear Hank. So Hank's trying to yell at him, but Bobby's like, the what? And gets hit in the face. So they go to the Mega Mart where they see this guy who we later learn is Buckley, Luann's boyfriend. We later learn later in episode 5 that he's dating Luann. So I'm just gonna refer to him as Buckley. Hey, I'm just gonna refer to him the guy because from this episode we didn't know who he was. So I'm just gonna refer to him like the employee at Megalomar, the teenager employee at Megalomar. Hank's asking for a thing, what the guy's like, what is it for? But Hank's like, I just want the thing. And I'm just like, Hank, shouldn't you tell the employee what you're using this for? Then 2 gossip ladies come over there and talk about Hank, and some 2 ladies are talking about Hank and how he has a bunch of anger issues and wonder how Bobby got that eye. So then we see we see 2 other ladies talking about Hank and Bobby, and about how they think Hank beats up Bobby. So then that leads to another person, and that leads to another person, and that person calls the social services. Wait, no, not the who are like, oh yeah, he's now gonna deal with this. He's gonna deal with this. Because Bobby's name is now in the system. So meanwhile, Bobby's playing with a ball while Hank is working on his car, which annoys him. So, but Dale being Dale, decides to let, because we know all that Dale is. He decides to, Hank calls for the flashlight, but Dale doesn't give it back, so it causes Hank to get trapped in his own car. Got caught in his trunk of his car. In the front of his car. Hank gets caught there. So, yeah. Good going, Dale. We'll talk about Dale's other adventures later on in the series. But as we go on, and why he's a terrible friend, why he's sometimes the terrible and best friend. So meanwhile, why he's a terrible and sometimes best and terrible friend. So meanwhile, Bobby's still bouncing that ball, but Peggy's like, hey, go. Accidentally hits Peggy in the face with the ball. So Hank gets out of his car and yanks away from Bobby as the Social Security guy shows up. Social Security guy shows up. So he's like, hey. So he's like, Hank, you shouldn't get angry. And Hank says, I work for propane accessories, and I work for this country, and gets all flustered, and he tells Peggy to get the AC, get the thing to help him. So yeah. So after talking with Hank, he decides to talk to Dale, and Dale says, Hank's a good guy. So then Nancy, his wife, shows up saying that she's gonna go to the Hague with John Redcorn. And the joke is that she's secretly having an affair with that man. Because Dale says, you get hags. You've been going to the healer for 12 years and you still get hags every night. Dale, if your wife has been going to if your wife has been going to a healer for 12 years, shouldn't you realize that she's been cheating on you? But yeah, that's the running joke for this series, is that Dale is oblivious that his wife is cheating on him because he doesn't realize that his son Joseph has the exact same skin, has a little Indian skin as John Redcorn. Yes, that's the funniest of the joke. But yeah, so Nancy goes with John Redcorn, and Dale says, oh yeah, Hank never sees Bobby. Never hurts Bobby. He's best friends with my son, Joseph Gribble. And then he brings out Joseph, who is voiced by Brittany Murphy, the same voice actor for Luann. I forgot to mention that during the first four seasons of the show, Brittany Murphy both voiced Luann and Joseph Gribble. So he's like, no. Hank, Bobby seemed fine. So Bobby's talking with Joseph, and actually first the Social Security guy talks with Boomhauer for some reason, and Boomhauer just brings up how he's tried to call him a dog problem, but they've never shown up. So the guy's like, okay, I should just leave now. So as he's walking, he hears Joseph, hears Joseph and Bobby imitating Hank, and for some reason he really buys that this is what Hank sounds like. So he's like, he really buys what this. For some reason, he buys this what Hank sounds like. So then he's like, Bobby imitates Hank, and and then Hank says, "Oh, I'll beat you into the ground," and then he's like, "Oh, I knew it." So he goes to Hank's house, tries to get Bobby to come with him, but Bobby's like, "No," but he's like, "It's okay, Bobby. I know you cannot talk in front of Hank," but Hank's like, "I'm gonna beat your butt. I'm gonna kick your ass," as he always says. That's his main line. So so the guy gets in trouble with his social security office, and he's like, "Dude, did you ever think of talking to the Little League team?" And he's like, So Bobby gets so Bobby answers the phone saying that the investigation's off, but instead of telling Hank and Peggy, he decides to lie to them and say it was the wrong number. So what does Bobby do with this information? He physically abuses Hank because he and Joseph think it's fun to physically abuse Hank because it's Bobby. He and Joseph think it's fun to physically abuse Hank. So he presses the button, and Bobby says, "Oh, Dad, you know what the guy says?" And he's like, "You're really quoting that guy?" So yeah, so we get the song, we get the song down together by that band, but it's instrumental. But then the guy who talked to the other guy comes and is like, "Hey," and off screen tells Peggy what they told Bobby, and that causes her to confront Bobby, and he says about how he wants to become a police officer when he grows up, and he says about how he just didn't want he likes torturing his dad, so his dad loves him. So she tells Hank what Bobby did, and at first he says, "I'll kill him," but then he's like, "No," he just thinks he'll love him, and he's like, "Of course I love him." And she's like, "Tell me that." And he's like, tell him that. And he's like, "I can't tell him that. You know how his father was raised. You know how his father raised him." Then we get into a flashback of Cotton Hill, Hank's father, basically berating Hank over basically saying if he can survive having his shins blown off by a machine gun, then Hank can deal with a scraped knee, because Cotton Hill, even in the flashbacks, was a worse dad. He may be the worst dad on television. So Hank decides to be like, "Oh, dude, Bobby, I don't hate you." Meanwhile, back with Luann cries to Hank and Peggy about how her mom's in jail because her father accidentally threw away her mom's beer, and she stabbed him with a fork, and now her trailer's all ruined and her mom's in jail. So she asks Hank if she can stay with him, and she does, and she literally does for the entire series. She stays for the entire series. So even if Hank says she gotta go, and even tries to throw her out to the, he even says, "Hey, can you take Luann?" That was funny. He really yeah. So anyway, yeah. So Hank and Bobby playfully punch each other with that guy on the bus complaining to his boss about how Hank punched Bobby. And that's literally how the first episode ends. So, no, is this episode really good? Yeah, it is. It's a very good episode. It did introduce some player characters like Bobby, Hank, Peggy, Luann, Boomhauer, Dale, and Bill. And it did, and there are some other characters in other episodes that we'll probably establish. And it did introduce Con Hill for the first time, even though he wouldn't be physically introduced until later on in the season. But still, this was a very good episode to introduce us fans. It made us love Hank Hill and his Dire Straits. And knowing that the show's gonna get a revival this year makes it so. I guess we're in more fun for the Hill family, except for Brittany Murphy, because her actress passed away in 2009 at the end of the series. So, are they gonna write out Brittany Murphy out of the show, out of the revival? But for now, we got Luann, and I like her. She's kind of the dumb blonde type character, where she super naive and dumb blondish. But yeah, when I talk about character, once I got so for this first episode, it kind of built the Hank and Bobby type relationship. So maybe in the second episode we'll get another type of relationship. So anyway, I'm just doing my sword thing where I roar at the audience because that's the 100 thing. But since next the next recap is for Supernatural. I'm currently watching Supernatural, so watch out for that recap when I finish this first season. Just to tell you that I'm currently watching Supernatural, so when me and my dad are done the first season, I'll do a recap for it. But anyway, that's it for this video, and I'll see you next time to review the second episode of King of the Hill, Square Peg. See you next time, everyone. See you next time, I'll tell you what.